All right.
Welcome back. This is the Casual GM Podcast. I am your host, Drew, and joined always by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Just as handsome as ever. Drew, yourself?
Blatantly obvious just by looking
I
at
know.
your that
I am what I am, as Popeye would say.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what else I am?
I'm excited. I have good reason to be excited today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
more.
Michigan absolutely stole one from the Illini on Saturday.
Yeah.
and then the Lions won on Sunday, so it was a great weekend.
3-game winning streak. 3 in a row, Drew.
So even when we were doing our schedule, like before the season, and we talked about it maybe once or twice during the season, I don't know that I saw 3 wins in a row on the schedule.
Yeah.
So they have defeated the Commanders, the Packers, the Bears, and the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was looking at this season, my thought was, oh, Shannon, we love you too. You're our favorite. What's this?
What is that? Was that on my side? Could you hear that?
I can hear it, yeah.
Places, it's the way it goes.
What the hell is that?
Every year. And every year we look.
Fucking ESPN. One of my other brothers have just randomly.
This is the kind of awesome, kind of technical expertise that you can come to expect from the Casual GM Podcast.
Yeah, well,
but
high quality production.
Oh, the highest.
Yeah.
So,
welcome, Shannon. We love having you on here.
Yeah, threw Mike off.
Yeah.
So I was hoping for 6 wins this season. I thought 6 wins would be an improvement upon last year, and I was hoping for 2 wins inside the division and 2 wins on the road, no matter how you wanted to break that up.
Right.
And so far this season, they are sitting at 4 wins through 11 weeks. And they have beaten the Packers and the Bears. So there's your 2 division wins. And they have 2 wins on the road in Chicago and in New York.
Yeah.
So 2 more wins, and I'm going to hit this is my expectation meter on what the Lions season looks like. So extremely happy with the way they played on Sunday. I thought it was the best, most complete game the team has played to date. Defense looked like a real defense. And it just does not matter whether or not DeAndre Swift plays well or DJ Chark only plays 10 snaps or whatever it was. The Lions are just going to put up 31 points a game regardless, unless you're playing in New England, apparently. So,
right.
And
not so even good doing it.
What's that?
We don't even look good doing it. Like in general.
We do not look good doing it. That is, I think, one thing that we should probably talk about a little bit more is that nothing about what they're doing right now, to me, looks sustainable. Really? I mean,
what do you mean by that? Hey, Funky, what's up, buddy?
Hi, Funky. Hey, thanks for posting on last week's pre-recorded episode, Funky. That was great.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that. So I don't know. So okay, Mike, let me ask you this then. So what is the cornerstone on offense that this team, quote unquote, built their house? What's the thing that you can automatically rely upon with this offense week in, week out, regardless of who they play?
Our offensive line.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say, like per PFF, every offensive lineman has a grade over 70, and Sewell is up over 80, which is elite.
Yeah.
And
Funky, that is scheduled to see the game against Green Bay in week 18. Week 18 is being filled with playoff implications. We're 4-6 and in the hunt. That is ridiculous.
It's legitimate. I mean, like, there is a huge disparity in the NFC right now. But, like the teams that are winning their divisions are largely running away with their divisions. Like Minnesota has a comfortable lead in the North. The Eagles and the Cowboys seem to be taking over the NFC East. The South is still up for grabs.
Eliminated.
Yeah.
Oh, so great.
They're real close. So, but like in the
Shane, we're playing
NFC,
the Bills on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
And yes, you should watch your one football game that day.
So we talked about this before the season too. This was my measuring stick game, my litmus test game. I wanted to see how this squad, this roster would stack up against arguably one of the best teams in the NFL at this point in the season. And so it is a short week. The Lions have kind of been blessed via their schedule by not having to have much, if any, deviation in their schedule. You play on Sunday, you play at 1:00. You don't play at 4. You don't have to go very far. You don't have any London games or games in Germany. Board games are always good, Shannon. Like if anytime you get a chance to play a board game, you should probably take it. But this is the first time all season the Lions have to go on a short week. So I would prefer that week wasn't against one of the NFL's better teams, but it is. So you're just going to have to see how this game works out. Now, Buffalo hasn't played their best football as of late, and the Lions are arguably playing their best football that they have played all season.
Yeah,
so
early on, Buffalo looked like just world beaters. I mean, they beat the living crap out of the Rams, which we didn't know then, but everybody was going to.
Right.
And then they beat everybody early on. I'm just like, this might be a undefeated team at the end of the season. And then it kind of went to hell for them, and they've lost several games. I think they've got 3 or 4 losses now, and I didn't think that they would lose any of those. Just kind of out of the blue, like what happened? We have a shot, right?
Yeah, the Lions, I would say. So, I would say it's if the Lions end up getting blown out, I wouldn't be shocked. And if the Lions keep this close and make a game out of it, I don't know that I would be shocked either. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there doesn't seem to be. They play everybody tough. Like, I mean, except the Patriots, but I mean, maybe the Cowboys, but like. I don't know that the Lions have set their own level of play. It seems like they are playing to the level of the opponent in a lot of different circumstances, but like, I don't know that that's really
you're
something.
Not as good as the opponent, right? When you're the clear favorite, you don't ever want to play down to the level of your opponent. If you're the bad opponent, then if you're the bad team, you always want to play up. Yeah, Small World, Risk.
Small World is maybe my favorite board game ever. So what I like about Small World is that there's always this level of competition when it comes to like board games. I'm playing against you. I'm trying to beat you. But with Small World, it's more about like, I'm just going to go and do my thing. And then like, not all of my decisions are completely dependent upon what you do. And the way that the game is formatted, I've never really played the same game of Small World twice, which I really like because it's got a lot of repeatability to it. Yeah. And then another great game, which maybe, I don't know if it's culturally insensitive now, that I used to play, was called Pandemic. If you want to play a game where it's such a great game. If you don't want to play, yeah, that's the point. Yeah, that's where I was headed, was that it's a cooperative game. So it's you can get 2, 3, 4 people together and you can play against the game parameters as opposed to one another. So you're all working to overcome this goal. It's a real great game. I've really enjoyed every game of Pandemic that I've played. So
yeah, we need to do a board game night, Drewster.
Well, Josh is always talking about how he wants to play Shogun again or whatever, and he's got all these different games that he wants to play, but he never makes any time for us. So, but yeah, we should. Yeah, he's always hanging out with his family. What a jerk. So
I don't know. Just eventually, you've got like me, where they're 17 and 19, and they just don't care about you. So then you can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, his kids are like, how old is his daughter now? 11 or 12?
And
And his son is like 8, right?
Yeah.
Haven't played Scythe. Seen it on the shelves, but I haven't played it. Sounds like a good game. Who doesn't want to play a game called Scythe?
Right.
So, but anyways, Shannon's making us deviate from our football talk.
Yeah. She's a very distracting person sometimes.
Seems like it. But yeah, as far as like Detroit and like their ability to like maintain their own like level of play, I think it's really difficult right now. Like the thing that I would say about Detroit that is the most reliable is probably their running game. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, who doesn't seem like he can be stopped, you know. And if Jared Goff can throw a ball that doesn't wobble, like it can get to Sun God in good order. But you know, DJ Chark came back last game. I don't think he played that many snaps. I know that he was targeted once on a ball that looked like a 50-50 ball. And luckily the giant defender didn't come down with it. And Tom Kennedy had another big third down conversion. He's playing pretty well for his snap count. And you know, Jameson Williams back at practice, so he's not going to play on Thursday, but his 21-day clock to be activated from he was on the NFI list. So his clock has started, as has Romeo Okwara's. So there's some injury news that we should probably cover for the Thanksgiving Day game, but the team is, I think, trending to be more healthy than it has been.
So
they will.
When you were asking me, like, what was the thing that we build that our offense is based on, and the best part of our offense is our offensive line. And that's not sexy. It's necessary.
Sure.
But really, to be a strong offensive team, consistently strong offensive team, you really need to have your skill players be your best players, right? Your quarterback you have to have at least a mediocre offensive line, but your quarterback has to be elite if you want to make a run in the playoffs for a Super Bowl. And, you know, when you look at the PFF grades, we can see Taylor Decker was an 86.3, which is elite.
Mm-hmm.
Amon-Ra, Sewell was number 4 with a 73.8 grade, which is also great. Ragnow, Jonah Jackson, Evan Brown, like of our top 8 people or 8 graded players, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are our offensive line.
Which is a bummer in a way because Evan Brown and Jonah Jackson are ruled out for Thursday.
Yeah, but what I'm kind of like getting towards is where's our quarterback? I'm showing you the top 15. I have to scroll, and he is 20th out of 20.
Yeah.
That's not, I mean, and that's why I say we won, but we didn't win looking good, right? Like, when you have a guy like Goff, and we talk about Goff all the time, and I feel like I'm just Goff bashing, but at the same time, because we won, right? We won 3 games in a row, and he's played a part in that. But at the same time, like, he's missing throws that he should make. He almost had an interception, but the guy dropped it. Didn't he have an interception but was called back on a penalty, or was that the previous game?
That was the previous game. Okay.
But, like, he's just not looking good, even in our win. So if we can get him out of the 40s and into, like, the 60s or 70s, like, I'd be happy with 60s. We'd just be more consistent, and we're more likely to win those closer games. Like you said, though, this was a all-around complete game, the best game that we've played as a team, offense, defense, special teams, I think, all year.
Yeah, I would, especially because teams like Green Bay aren't playing up to the level that you would kind of expect them to be playing to.
Yeah.
So I do think that this is the team that is playing, has A, the best roster, B, the best quarterback, and C, playing at the highest level of any team that they've played this year. Maybe Philadelphia, you could argue was that, but that was the first game of the year, and you don't really know, you know.
Yeah.
So, but turns out they're pretty good. So, all in all, I'm very pleased with the way that the Lions have been playing over this brief winning streak here. So, the one thing that I keep coming back to and thinking about is when they fired Aubrey Pleasant
3 games ago.
3 games ago, and when they traded TJ Hawkinson 3 games ago, I thought, Mike, can you get this bot out of the chat, please?
Yep, good call.
When they made those moves, I was like, I wasn't sure about Aubrey Pleasant. Now, apparently, Green Bay snapped him up, and he's working on the offensive side of the ball now, which I thought was interesting. And the TJ Hawkinson trade, I just thought was good business, but I didn't think, like, I still don't think, I guess, that like those moves would translate to wins.
Yeah,
but the defense has played better. Causation
does not equal correlation in this case.
Yeah. So I find it really odd, but then they were 1-6 and now they're 4-6. And like, you've heard the term addition by subtraction, but I still don't know that that's what it is.
I can't imagine it is.
Yeah.
I think what the Aubrey Pleasant move where they fired him, I think could be a little bit addition by subtraction because you now have a new coach. And I think AG was going to, because he had been a DB coach in New Orleans, right? So I think he was going to put a little bit more of his touch in that group, in that position room. And then the assistant DB coach or whatever was going to kind of take over. So I think there's a little bit of new blood on the coaching side there. I think it also, as a leader, I think it shows Campbell's willingness to hold people accountable. If your position group is not following the game plan, that's on you as the leader of that position group, right? And if you're not going to follow what we want to do, and your guys aren't doing it, it's because you're not leading them well enough. Let's get somebody in here that maybe the guys will more likely follow. So I do think that having a little bit of accountability within the team, whether it's at a coaching area or even at a player area, when it comes to who gets snaps and who doesn't, I think that goes a long way into pushing people to be the best that they can be, because they know that they're going to be held accountable by the coaching staff, and snaps are everything to players, because that's how you make your money, right? You go out there, you play snaps. Hopefully you perform well, because that's really how you make the money. But if you don't get snaps, you're not going to be able to do that. So I think that accountability really is a good driving force for our players. And I think that might have just made them up their game a little bit.
It very easily could have. I don't have a good answer for it. I'm happy that they're doing it. I'm more happy they have the Rams pick.
We talked early in the season about where we were probably going to draft, and we thought we were going to draft 5-6-ish, maybe have a top 5 pick, but certainly a top 10 pick. And then we'll probably have a pick in that like 16 to 22, 23, maybe worse. But we never thought it was going to be the other way around. We never thought the Rams pick was going to be the top 5 and the Lions pick was going to be that 15 to 20.
So, winning is what it's all about, right? Like I was hoping that the Lions would have, a couple of pretty good picks, top 15 picks, which they do right now, to add some good to elite talent on this team. And then like next season, all the expectations that people had currently for this season, I think would align and, like make a playoff push, that kind of thing. So but Matthew Stafford is in the concussion protocol right now. The Rams cut their leading rusher today.
Did they actually put him in the concussion protocol? I know he was pulled out for a potential concussion, but last I heard he wasn't officially in the protocol yet.
what I've heard is that he's in the protocol.
Gotcha. It could have been. Yep.
Yeah. So nothing is going well for them. I mean, they are down Cooper Kupp for maybe the next month, maybe a little bit longer. They cut their leading rusher. They've had injuries up and down their offensive line. Stafford's out.
Their backups at Wolford, who's no good either, but he's out. So they're actually playing their third stringer, Perkins.
The defense has not been bad this year, but I mean, it's not going to win them games, and I think that they are playing the Chiefs this week. Somebody tough.
It would be.
So I assume that they'll go to, 3-8, and what have you. But now is the time for Las Vegas, Denver, Chicago to pick up a win. We want those teams that are close to the Los Angeles pick to, pick up a win here and there while Los Angeles is in this kind of really unfortunate stretch of injuries and, just otherwise just not meeting the expectations. So yeah, there's a bunch of 3-win teams.
Now, looking at their schedule, there's almost no chance that they're going to beat the Chiefs. They'll probably lose to Seattle. Seattle's playing well. The Raiders, maybe it's a toss-up, but it's still before Kupp gets back. Packers, I just don't think the Packers are as bad as their record is. But you've said before, at some point you are what your record is. I just think that they'll have a tough time beating the Packers. Broncos, I could see being a 50-50 game the way that both teams are playing. They'll lose to the Chargers. Again, I think they'll lose to the Seahawks. They'll lose to the Chargers.
That's the preseason.
Yeah, I'm going the wrong direction. I'm an idiot.
No, you did fine. You just made it through the end of the season.
It's okay. I was like, what the heck? That doesn't. So I see maybe 2 wins. If everything goes well for them.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. So the teams that are ahead of Detroit right now in the draft, for the Detroit's pick, are Houston's leading the way. Carolina, Chicago, Vegas, Denver, which Seattle gets their pick. Then the Rams, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, New Orleans, Arizona, and Green Bay. So those are the teams that we kind of want to root for because, except for Los Angeles, because they're going to improve the quality of Detroit's draft assets if they start winning. So, which would be great. I mean, fine, win 18 games or whatever, but I mean, have the worst strength of schedule among all teams so that you get the number 1 pick, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Winning's great. I don't know that the Lions, I mean, Funky definitely is on the to the playoffs bandwagon here. So, I mean, it would be great if they, I guess, made the playoffs for him. But I definitely want the draft capital to be something that's going to help us get better next season as well.
Yeah, I don't see Houston leaving the basement.
They are so bad. So I don't see them doing that either.
But I also see Carolina, Chicago, Vegas. I mean, if Vegas beats the Rams, that's one of the people that we want to jump, right? So I think the Rams pick could be a top 3 pick.
There's always a possibility. I mean, and if in those games, you said they play Denver and Vegas, right?
So, yep, Kansas City, Seattle, Vegas, Green Bay, Denver, Chargers, Seattle.
So those games where they play Denver and Las Vegas, the best things for the Lions is that those 2 teams
both beat them.
Yeah, because it's going to send those teams higher and send Los Angeles down. So, absolutely, that's the recipe, And so, I mean, if Detroit did not have that pick, I'd be a little more winning's nice, but I don't want to pick 13th, Like
Yeah.
Detroit, outside of Indianapolis, because they have this ridiculous tie on their record, like Detroit picks last of all the teams that they tie with because of their insanely high strength of schedule.
Yeah.
So, wow, outside of Green Bay, but like, we gotta either break into a different tier some way, somehow, or the teams below us have to win more games than the Detroit Lions are going to win. But like Detroit has a relatively easy schedule. We play Chicago again. We have Carolina, Jacksonville. We're playing the Jets, which only managed 3 points this last week and look utterly helpless on offense. You get the Packers again, who haven't played well. You got to play Minnesota one more time. People still aren't convinced that Minnesota's a real team, even though it makes very little sense to me.
They have not seen Justin Jefferson play then.
Oh God, the guy is so good. He's amazing. So I listened to this podcast put on by Jason Fitzgerald, who is the main contributor to the Over the Cap Pot website.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about, there's A6.
Hey, Six, welcome back, buddy.
Ooh, what happened here? Stop
Super Bowl. Get out of here.
So, that seemed unrealistic. But
I mean,
he was
leading the league in touchdowns with 12. He is almost like Gurley in his prime.
Oh, stop. So he was talking about the contract that Justin Jefferson could get when his rookie deal's up. And he was talking something like close to 30 a year.
That's what Devontae got, right?
I don't think there's a wide receiver that makes 30 a year.
I thought Devontae got 30 a year. Maybe not.
I mean, I know that it's more than 27 because someone beat DeAndre Hopkins list or position.
Crimson, what's up, buddy?
He's early this week. Tyreek Hill has an average of 30, but his deal, I mean, like the way that it's structured doesn't work out to 30 million a year. Yeah, I don't know how the thing is built, but yeah, he could very easily be the first wide receiver north of $30 million a year. So he was insane against the Bills.
So kind of coming back to this past game, I did want to talk a little bit about kind of, I know we've kind of got our second contract watch kind of segment where we kind of take a look at the guys that are coming up on the end of their rookie deals. Do we extend them for an extra year? Do we re-sign them? But I also don't mind taking a look at Brad Holmes' draft classes.
Sure.
And I know Aleem McNeil had been hurt, and he's only played the last couple of games. He has been dominant. He has been so impressive, McNeil has. And then Hutch, obviously, like he continues to amaze me. And to have those two guys being at elite level grades, and then like Will Harris, Kirby Joseph played really well. Okuda, he's kind of on our second contract watch list. He ended up going out with a head injury when I think it was Julian Okwara went crazy and banged into him. I think it was Julian, but he will be out for Thursday, so that's a big bummer.
That is a bummer.
Were there any standouts to you in this last game?
Well, we got Rodriguez back. He didn't exactly stand out, but he is playing with a brace on, so he's back. That's good. Josh Pascal wasn't playing. That's a bummer. But yeah, Hutchinson played well. Kirby Joseph played well. And every game that those guys play well, I get just a little bit more comfortable with the fact that they're going to work out.
Yeah.
Now, I was thrilled that Hutchinson made that interception, but I was also like, why are we dropping Aiden Hutchinson into coverage? Like, that seems less good than what we could otherwise be using him for, but he made a big play. So, I mean, like, what do
He's
I know?
got better hands than Oruwariye.
Yeah, he does have better. Poor Amani Araraway is the 119th out of 119 cornerbacks ranked. And, like, he is going to have to start and play on Thursday. And
Like, lots of red, which is bad.
red, oranges, and yellows, not what you want to see on that list. I mean, like, look at like some of those games he was out, but other ones he was just a healthy scratch. And like, look at his snap count. Like, he had one snap in Green Bay, one snap in Chicago. Like,
and he missed games 2, and then 5 and 6 he was just benched. I think 2 he was maybe hurt, but games 5 and 6 he had played so poorly before that he was benched.
Yeah, that's true.
He came back in 7 and 8, had some snaps, but played poorly, and then only got one snap in weeks 9 and 10.
Yep. So, and I believe, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I know he plays on special teams, but he's just been a liability in coverage. So Crimson asked a good question here. So with Kirby Joseph exploding, where does he rank on this year's safety draft class, and is he better than Hamilton? Well, what I would say about Kirby Joseph is that, yes, he's playing well. And like, that comes in the form of turnovers, which are in a lot of ways random. You have to just have the opportunity to get them, and that's not always there. I'm glad he's doing it. And that I think that that's been a huge key to this 3-game winning streak, is that the Lions are winning the turnover battle in those 3 games 8-1. So that's excellent. Jaquan Brisker is the best safety in this class so far. Lewis Cine was hurt, and he's out for this season. The only other safety that I think is really of note, there's 2 of them, I guess. Jalen Petrie in Houston, and he's playing well, but he's a kind of a penalty machine at this point in his career, but I think that he's going to get that worked out. And then Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore will be the big chip that he's going to get compared against, right? The other player that he's going to kind of be measured against, and Kyle Hamilton is playing very well. He's their sub package nickel corner, and he's playing about 25 snaps a game. So Kirby's playing more snaps per game than he is, because he's their full-time starter, and he's generating turnovers. So like right now, I would say Kirby Joseph is the second best safety in the class based upon like the impact that he's had on the team. I think if you went by PFF grades, you would see like it's Jaquan Brisker and Kyle Hamilton who are leading the way as far as PFF grade. But the thing that I would say about that is that Kyle Hamilton is just not playing as many snaps as Kirby Joseph. So, I mean, like, you see it here, like 42, 38, 16, 16, 14, 29, 21, 36, 38, 21. I mean, that's good. And like, so like if you start at like week 7, those are quality scores, and they're only getting better. But once again, he only played 21 snaps against Carolina. So I think you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt. So I would say Kirby Joseph is playing as well as just about any safety in this year's class. But he was taken 2 rounds later than both Brisker and Kyle Hamilton. I mean, Brisker was taken in the second round, top of the second round, something like that. And Kirby Joseph was the 97th pick. So I mean, he's taken 60 picks later than Brisker, and he's 80 picks after Hamilton.
I think one of the things we have to look at is also not just who's playing better, because that can be kind of subjective and kind of a little bit coincidental based on the plays and all that kind of stuff. But it's also like who's got the most impact, right? Because like you said, Kirby Joseph played 75 snaps last game.
Right.
He basically played every snap on defense. Well, he might have been off for one because Deshaun Elliott played 76. So my guess is they had 76 snaps, and Elliott probably played them all. Whereas Hamilton, it would take him almost 3 games to get that many snaps. So me, even though his grades were a little bit lower, I mean, Hamilton's grades are great. 79.4, 81, 91. Those are great. Kirby Joseph was a 69.2. That's not terrible. It's still like starter quality, but he also played 75 snaps.
Right.
And that's been consistent for him ever since Tracy Walker went down, and he jumped in the rotation and then went, wow, this kid is better than we thought. So he always got a lot of snaps in. He's had a bunch of turnovers, forced fumbles. Like, he's been, I think, more impactful for our team than Hamilton probably has been on the Ravens.
Yeah, I could see that. So far this year, Jaquan Brisker has played 675 snaps for Chicago. You still have Hamilton up?
I do.
Can you look up his total snap count for the season?
271.
Okay, so a little more than a third of what Jaquan Brisker is doing. And then I've got Kirby Joseph right here. One second. Kirby has played 438 in 4-5. Didn't play week 6. That was the bye week. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So he's played every week since week 4. So he's played 438 snaps, having not played at all the first 3 games.
It's about 60, just under, we'll call it 60 snaps a game.
Yeah.
Just over.
So, I mean, I would say if these numbers continue for each of these 3 players, I would rank like, if nothing like crazy happens between now, like injuries or whatever, like I would say it's Brisker, Joseph, Hamilton as far as impact, because I think that like Kyle Hamilton is simply not playing enough in order to warrant being put above the other 2 guys who are playing anywhere from twice to 3 times as much as he is. So, but they're all playing well. I mean, like they're all contributing right away. Like, but the point is like Kyle Hamilton went 12. Funky told us that Brisker went 48, and then Kirby Joseph went 97. So, I mean, like Brad Holmes is finding guys that can compete as starters. So, like, let's do it like this. So, like, Amon-Ra St. Brown is adding as much as a 4th round pick as any 2nd or 1st round wide receiver since his draft class, right? Except maybe Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle, and those were both top 10 picks.
Yeah.
And then Malcolm Rodriguez, up until he was injured, was playing at just a little bit worse than Devin Lloyd, who the Jaguars traded back up into the 1st round in order to select, and he was a 6th round pick. So like Brad Holmes is not only finding like quality players that can play as starters, like, and it was not like they had to play behind anybody really. I mean, come on, but like they are producing for the Lions the same way that other like more notable standout rookies are playing at their positions for other teams that were taken 1, 2, 3, 5 rounds ahead of them. So a little bit of credit due to Brad Holmes, I would say.
I mean,
does not have T-Rex arms. That's ridiculous. Stop it.
I'm loving the drafts so far that we've gotten. We've gotten quality players in those drafts. McNeil, Hutch, Joseph. Deshaun Elliott's still on his. He was drafted by. Was Deshaun Elliott drafted by Holmes?
He was not. They signed him to a 1-year deal from Baltimore.
Okay, that's right. I was like, as soon as I said that, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. But like, and Sewell, like Amon-Ra, the other big guy in the middle, Ali McNeil, and then the other one, Onwuzurike. Until he got hurt, like we had very good quality contributors throughout his 2 draft classes. So I'm super excited to see what our next draft class looks like. And Funky, let me scroll back up here. He asked, what do you think of the idea of drafting Quentin Johnson from TCU with one of the first rounders?
I can't believe I missed this, but like I'm super glad that he asked, because this is my thinking. If you're not going to get Bryce Young as a quarterback, I don't want you to take a quarterback in the first round. And like, name your quarterback, I don't care. Like, it's Bryce Young or nobody as far as I'm concerned. So so right now they're not in a position to take Bryce Young, who's being projected to be the number 1 overall pick. So what do you do with your 2 first rounders? So let's say, so right now, if the draft were today, the Lions are picking 6th and 13th. Picking 6th is awful, because if the draft goes like you would expect, quarterback, elite defensive player, the Lions are missing out on all the tier 1 talent. So I would expect that DJ Chark is not back with this team next year, because when they signed him this offseason, they signed him to a 1-year, $10 million deal, but it has 2 void years on it, so they could spread the money out. So he has not made a huge impact when he has been out there. And like, you are paying him for the next 2 years regardless. And if you sign him on an extension, I don't think you can get rid of the void years. So his cap hit this year was like $4 million. But I mean, I would rather do something like take a Quentin Johnson, and then you have your burner, your big body guy, who, by the way, Quentin Johnston, like, makes dudes miss. Like, he is like the number 1 in wide receivers for like broken tackles. Or like what is that called? Like, not broken tackles, but like, he makes dudes miss, right?
Yeah.
And like, he's also huge. So you would have the dude is enormous. The dude is enormous. Like, so you would have, if you did that, you would have, let's say at 6, you take Quentin Johnson. Like, let's say Miles Murphy, Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, then Stroud and Young all go off the board. If you were to go Quentin Johnson at 6 and say Joey Porter at 13, I think that there's a really good case that you've added a lot of talent in the first round of this Lions roster, because you're replacing Chark, and you have all 3 types of wide receiver. You have your crafty route runner in St. Brown, who's just your chain mover. You have your elite burner in Jamison Williams, who we'll see what he does, if he plays, how much he plays the rest of the season. And then you would have your big body, red zone, make dudes miss guy. And like, I mean, in a matchup league, that is the holy grail of what you want. And they're all on rookie contracts.
Yeah. Well, and then you got capable tight ends that can catch the ball. And to be honest, you and I were talking about before the podcast or the stream that, Buddy and I was talking about Hockenson. Since he's been over to Minnesota, he's got, I forget what it was, something like 18 catches and, I don't know, 150 yards. And I'm like, yeah, he's got no touchdowns. And our tight ends have 3 touchdowns. We won 3 games with those guys. Like, 50 yards a game is nothing special for Hawk. And we got guys that are doing just as much for a heck of a lot less money. And we only need capable tight ends, right? We just need that when we have those kind of guys like St. Brown, J-Mo, and a guy like Quentin Johnston, like, you only need a guy that can do the occasional third down or distraction play or whatever, right? You don't need a Kelsey when you've got the others. Kelsey's there because they don't have 3, fast, strong, and shifty wide receivers.
Yeah, right. So, like, did you ever watch that movie Moneyball?
Oh yeah, it's great. Loved it.
So me too. So like, there is a scene in there where like the scouts are sitting around the table and they've just hired Jonah Hill, and he's like, well, we can't find another Giambi, but we can try to recreate him in the aggregate. That's what they've done with TJ Hockenson.
Yeah.
So basically what they've done is they've gone to like a tight end by committee approach, and like that has worked out to be about as effective as having TJ Hockenson. And then you don't have to pay those guys $15 million a year. So
yeah. So look.
Yeah, I saw that mock too. hang on. I saw that mock too, Crimson. They were talking about taking Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. Like, that's ridiculous. And like, you see these mocks at this time in the year where it's just like, here's an obvious thing that you did, like you took away from your team and can get better at. So we'll just mock that player to you because your pick happens to align with where he ranks on our big board, and you might have some need for that. And it's just utter and complete bullshit as far as I'm concerned. So, right. You know, and Funky makes a good point. Like, there's no tight end on this roster that scares anybody anymore. So, I mean, like, you're not going to game plan for those guys. And when you don't game plan for them and you're the fourth option, like, you're going to get that one catch for 16 yards kind of a game, you know, or whatever.
Or that critical third down conversion or even fourth down conversion for that matter.
You know, and like all these guys seem like human beings with arms, you know? So it's like, if you decide to leak one, I mean, like the first touchdown pass to Zylstra or whatever, they just like leaked him in through the back of the end zone. And it was just like this, and there was no one around him. And it was just like, here, pitch and catch. Like, if you can scheme that up for Jared Goff can make that happen. I mean, like, fine, you know, like you're a offensive player that is capable of playing in the NFL, Zylstra, Brock Wright, and James Mitchell. Like, you should catch wide open throws to you when no one, like when you're standing still and no one's around, you know? So
yeah, Jason Kabinda.
That's a bummer. That was a bummer.
Times last game, just right there, and he dropped him. And one
was
a
first game back.
Big play. I'm just like, get him off the right. Why do we need a fullback? Get that shit off of our roster. God, that was frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, so like, I think that right now in Minnesota, TJ Hawkinson is being targeted like a chain mover by Kirk Cousins, and our tight ends are, as Funky points out, like afterthoughts to an opposing defense, and they're catching touchdown passes. So I mean, like, I don't really care. You know, like, what I care about is not having to make the decision to pay Hawk a second contract. And I really like the fact that his $9.3 million, which would have been like third or fourth highest on the team next season, or certainly top 5, I think, like, is off the books. So, So I think that, like, this is one of those trades where no matter how you look at it, like, there's a little takeaway and there's a little addition for everybody involved. And so I don't really have a problem with that. Like, I think that trading TJ Hawkinson was a move done for the long-term vision of the team, and I'm fine with it. So he's certainly not he's not a Jason Kelce or a George Kittle or, you know, anybody like that. So,
or even a Travis Kelce.
Right. What did I say? Jason Kelce, the center, for the Eagles.
He is definitely not a Jason.
He's definitely not a center, you know. So,
you know, one of the things that we were talking about beforehand, because we were kind of talking about like what's the show going to be tonight? We're talking about how we played our first complete game all season, kind of start to finish, and in all phases, and that was great. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing we want to talk about was like, what the hell is going on with DeAndre Swift?
I have no idea. So I came up with a list of possibilities. Okay. Follow along with me, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, they are just managing his injuries, and he is on some kind of minutes restriction or a snap count or something. You know, Crimson, the Carter Porter mock is like, I would take that today and just walk out of the draft happy. So he's number one, what's going on with DeAndre Swift scenario is that they are just managing his snaps. He's not, quote unquote, all the way back. Now, I don't think that's very likely, because a couple of weeks ago he came out and said in the press, and he doesn't talk much in the press. He says that he was frustrated. I think what he said was, I'm frustrated with how I'm being utilized right now, which to me says that he wants to have a greater impact on the game. And through like the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, he had an unbelievable impact. So when I see him say that, what I heard was he wants to have a role similar to what he did the first 3 games of the season. And if he is healthy, I don't know why you would not give him that role.
Yep.
So not sure what that is.
That if he wasn't healthy, right? Because
I wouldn't
think.
Right. Exactly. Like if you can't do it and then you're like, I could go out there and do it, and you can't, like, you're foolish.
Yeah.
So, and like for someone who was hurt to come out and say, like, I don't understand why I'm not being utilized the way I was in the first 3 games of the season, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I would expect him to only say that if he felt he was capable of doing that, of maintaining that kind of workload, doing the things that he did the first 3 weeks of the season. So to me, that says he feels he can do it. Okay, so the next thing, he's just been replaced as the number 1 option by Jamal Williams, who is certainly not as a dynamic running back as DeAndre Swift, but like might be the better running back, if that makes any sense. So like, you know, he's leading the league in touchdowns, and it's just like, we're going to give you 10 to 15 carries. You're going to get 60 yards a game, and you're probably going to get 1 or 2 touchdowns a game because you're good enough to get us down into the red zone, and we're just going to use that line and smash your face and then like be effective in short yardage and goal to go situations. And he's proven remarkably effective at that. And like the other thing though, that leads me to believe that he's not just replaced Swift is that Justin Jackson had as many carries as DeAndre Swift did last week. So I'm like, if that's at all the case, because like I think Swift had something like 10 or 15 snaps. Yeah, I would agree with you, Funky, that he's probably the better overall running back. So he played Swift 11 snaps.
Justin Jackson at 13.
Yeah, so you're playing the third option, Justin Jackson, as much as DeAndre Swift. So like you are either saying Swift has been demoted and he's going to get as many carries as like the number 2 guy would get. How many did Jamal Williams have, by the way?
18.
Oh, there he is. So like everybody's relatively close. So like they've either decided they're going running back by committee.
Crimson says, according to 97.1, they say it's because Drew Staley is punishing him, moving him to 3rd string.
That's Deuce Staley. I'm honored, by the way.
Sorry. I read Drew, but yeah, it's Deuce Staley. But I don't think coaches don't punish players as much as they play the ones that are going to put the team in the best position to win. If Swift is not that guy, they're going to bump him. It's not a punishment. I forget which hockey coach it was. They were saying, hey, I'm not the one that makes the starting lineup. You guys do. You guys do it in practice. You guys do it with your effort. You guys do it with your production. I'm not the one making the lineup. You guys are doing it. If you're not going to play well, you're making that job easier. You're just writing the lineup for me. So I think that most coaches do that. I don't think it doesn't make sense to just go, well, I don't like you or you pissed me off or whatever, so I'm going to punish you, because you're punishing the rest of the team if you're not putting the guy in the best position to help the team. So I can't believe it's a punishment. If anything, it's going to be a more of a come to Jesus type of thing. We're like, dude, you're just not doing it. You're not doing what we ask. We ask you to cut inside and you go outside. We ask you to run north and south, you go on east and west. Like if you're not going to do what we ask, you can't help the team. If you're not going to help the team, we're going to put somebody else in that can.
So I'm gonna push back a little bit. I don't know if this is even.
Drew.
I'm so sorry. But like we all saw what DeAndre Swift did in those first 3 weeks. Like, so I guess my question would be like, what has changed? Like, if you can be that effective, Mike.
Yep, I got it.
So if you can be that effective, you're talking about the Rams. Ugh. So if you can be that effective in those games doing those things, I don't know why they would say, well, we're not going to have you do those things anymore. And like DeAndre Swift scored a touchdown in this game, like from 10 yards out. Like, he got a good block from Kabinda, who they very clearly want to use when he's available. And he, ran one in, how many did Williams have? 3 touchdowns?
Yeah.
So like Detroit had 4 touchdowns scored by running backs on running plays last week, and like DeAndre Swift is very clearly a better receiving threat than any of the other running backs are, and like I guess I'm surprised that that Justin Jackson is getting 13 rushing attempts a game when you could get some more of those to DeAndre Swift and like get him in the game more. So if he is being punished, this seems like they are heading for a divorce.
Well, so I don't think so. Think about it this way: when you look back at those first few games, and we even talked about it because he talked about it in Hard Knocks. Staley did about driving forward, cutting inside, following your blocks. In those first 3 games, when he played so well, he did that. He'd cut around the outside. The play is designed to go around the end or whatever, and then instead of like bouncing out of bounds right before he got hit, he'd put his shoulder down and he'd get those extra 3 or 4 yards, or he'd make that cut inside and get more instead of bouncing out. I don't see that right now. I see him, sidestepping back and forth, and I see him bouncing outside. I don't see him going up the gut. I don't see him playing the way he did those first 3 or 4 games. And I think that would be a big thing for Staley, because that's what he told him. You got to do this. And I don't see that at all right now.
Well, here's my thing. Like, so like when I remember watching Hard Knocks, and I remember Deuce Staley saying that. Here's my thing about that approach. DeAndre Swift is 5'9" and a little over 200 pounds. Okay. If you want, I don't have any idea. Click on Justin Jackson for me, and let's get like his measurables here real quick. But like 6 foot 199. So like not that much difference, right? 3 inches. Here's my thing. Like when you look at DeAndre Swift, I don't look at him and been like, well, he's a turn him north and south dude. Like,
yeah, but if you're going east and west, you're not getting yards.
Well, I mean, sure, I understand that. Like having watched Michigan football my whole life, I am a north-south runner. Like that's my preference as well, and like that's what Jamal Williams is doing well. But like, if you're going to do that, like, then why are you playing? I mean, like, what scenario is DeAndre Swift helping this team at all? Like, I think through the first 3 games, you saw a player that can have a dynamic impact on this team. And we were talking about it like, well, if he keeps playing like this, then he's in line for a second contract. And if you're going to put that guy on the bench and like take away his ability to do what he did in those first 3 games, because he quote unquote doesn't turn it up field as much as you would like him to do, then like I think that you're coaching poorly.
Well, if that's the play and he's not doing that and he's not following his blocker because maybe he's a little gun shy of getting hurt again. I mean, if that's the play, that's the play.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, I understand that, but I mean, like, it's not Deuce Staley out there joysticking DeAndre Swift like it's like Tecmo Bowl 82 or whatever. I mean, like,
right.
It's like we're gonna call a play and like shit happens. Like it's not always. I mean, the Lions' offensive line plays well, but like they don't always hit all their blocks. Right. And like if it's like, oh, turn it up field and he runs into the back of Evan Brown or somebody, I'm gonna be like, hooray, 2 yards. I don't give a shit. Like I mean, like, but if it's also the kind of guy where it's like, if he has the ability to, like, I'm going to one cut, go back, and like turn something that was a 2-yard gain based upon the way we call it and what the play design called for, and turn that into a 5, 6, 7-yard gain. I mean, Barry Sanders has as many negative rushing plays in NFL history as anyone else. You know, everyone loves Barry because he's like this human highlight reel, but a lot of his stuff got stopped behind the line. You know, but like everyone was all right with him doing that because he had the ability to turn any play into magic at any given time. So DeAndre Swift is not your just brute force, straightforward, foot in the ground, go running back. He's a different type of player. And like, if you want to have the guy turn upfield, then give it to Jamal Williams and Justin Jackson all those times. That's fine. But I think that you're putting a weapon that has helped this team this season on the bench for not effectively being a different player that you already have on the roster. And like, you don't need 3 running backs that can do exactly the same thing. So like, if it's just turn the ball upfield and go, fine. But then let's get rid of DeAndre Swift because that's not who he is.
Right. And I think that might be what's going on.
And if that's the case, then I don't know why they didn't try and trade him at the trade deadline. And maybe because he was hurt.
Since he got hurt.
But like, then you're just going to let him play out his contract and walk then. I don't think that DeAndre Swift run like he's scared. I think that he was extremely productive in the first 3 games, and he's less productive now having come back from an injury. And I think people are watching him run and they're like, you're not as effective. You're either hurt or you're scared or you're not doing what the coaches tell you or what have you. And I'm just like, I don't think that they're using him in the same way that they used him in the first 3 games of the season. Like, go back and call those plays. Go back and like flex him out and get him into the slot, you know, or put him on a linebacker and have him match up there, you know, or like swing the ball out to him on a check down. Like, those are things that like Jared Goff loves to do. And like Jamal Williams and Justin Jackson and we saw Kabinda try and catch the ball out of the backfield last week. Like, if you're going to throw the ball to someone coming out of the backfield, it should be DeAndre Swift. And he's not going to be effective at doing it if you play him 11 snaps a game. So if you want to put, I think that like whether we like him or not, he is like, I don't like Jared Goff. But like, I certainly don't want to turn the ball over to Nate Sudfeld and be like, here you go, bro. Like, I don't like this other guy, so you're going to come in and try and do the thing that I like. Nope. Jared Goff gives this team a better chance to win than Nate Sudfeld. And I would say that DeAndre Swift, when you put him on the field, is a better matchup against any other defense than Justin Jackson. So at the very least, I would like to see him get Justin Jackson's snaps. Yeah. And you can continue to run Jamal Williams in short yardage situations and when you want to get ahead of the chains and all that kind of good stuff. But I think it's a mistake to put DeAndre Swift, A, in this position, and B, not playing as much.
Yeah, I am curious to see, like, he had 5 rushing attempts in 11 snaps, 6 attempts in 8 snaps. Both of his snaps were rushes. Like, I wonder if they're not being as inventive. And maybe they tried to start being a little bit more inventive because, like, up until last week, weeks 2 through 10, it was if he was on the field, he was getting the ball. Like, he played a snappy rush, all but like 4 times out of like almost all of those. They handed the ball to him. So this time it was more. So he was on the field in non-rushing situations 6 additional times. He got 5 carries and then 6 non-carry snaps. So I think that's what they need to do is they need to get a little bit more creative with him, put him in that slot, have that 2 running back, which they did a couple times, and have this be a little bit more. And somebody was at Crimson. Yeah, Crimson had mentioned like, hey, whenever the other team sees Swift out on the field, knows the call is a run play. Like, let's make that
Right.
not be a thing anymore and get him out there for more snaps, even if it's just putting him in other dynamic positions like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Put him in trips, right, and have him do swing around like Cooper Kupp does, and Kupp always makes 10 yards on that play. And you watch him go, yep, they're going to hand it to Kupp, and everybody knows it. He still runs around and gains 10 yards. Like, Swift can do that kind of thing. Maybe we just need to be a little more inventive.
I mean, they did hand the ball off a couple of times to St. Brown in this game as well. And so I'm like, I don't mind that. You know, like if you want to add that wrinkle and he gets 1 or 2 carries a game and it's on like jet sweep action, or if it's like he's running across and they do some kind of like shovel pass, everyone's moving to the left, he's going to the right, that kind of thing, fine with me. I like that kind of wrinkle that you can be added. I don't know what's going on with him in this situation, but like, I mean, I think that he gives you a better chance to have an explosive play or a scoring opportunity. And having him play 11 snaps in a game, if he is not hurt, I think is a mistake by this coaching staff. So I'm very curious as to what is going on with this player. And like, you know, if they don't give him a second contract, I'm not going to cry about it, you know, because I think that you can replace a DeAndre Swift in the 3rd round, you know, of most draft classes at running back. But like, I was thinking that like Jamal Williams has probably earned himself a contract extension. If he's going to play like this,
we're talking about cut him, get that $2 million off our cap, right?
Yeah, and so like I saw something today. I like to read. There's an author that follows the Lions from The Athletic named Colton Pouncey. He's written some positive stuff about the Detroit Lions, and he was saying that I think he came out with an article today that said that Williams, who's got 600 plus yards right now, is on pace for like 1,100 yards at the rate that he's going, and for some ridiculous amount of touchdowns, like shattering record kind of touchdowns. But like, I mean, if you drafted Jamal Williams and are playing him on your fantasy team, you're probably winning weeks, right? But I was thinking that if he plays like this end of the year, the contract that I would think that he would be in line to receive would be the same kind of contract that Austin Eckler got as an extension from the Chargers, which would be something like 4 years, $25 million. So you'd be paying him, I can't do it off the top of my head, $6.5 million a season. 6.25.
Sounds about right.
So, I mean, and part of that to me is that like Dan Campbell has come out in the press and said like Jamal Williams is like the emotional leader on the team, not just on the offense, not just of the running backs, but like of the entire team. And like you see this on Hard Knocks, right? Like he, you know, hands in, he gives a speech, he's worked up, you know, like he does seem to me to be the guy that is, you know, the vocal leader, not Jared Goff, I might add, but like this running back. And like, I think there's probably going to be, I mean, the Lions are a super young team, you know, and like I would be willing to go 4 for $25 for Jamal Williams. That'll take him into his 30, like he'll be 31 by the time that contract's up. But like, I think that like having him in the locker room while this team is kind of like getting seasoned or a little bit experienced or whatever, and like a 27-year-old is not an ancient thing in the NFL. Like, I think having him being on this team and being a leader and someone that inspires other people to work hard would probably be a benefit in the locker room as much as on the field. So, and if he's going to keep contributing at rates like this, it's hard to say he shouldn't be on the field.
So would you also give Swift a similar contract and have the two be the main two guys and then rotate that third one with mid to late round draft choice or something?
No, I would not. So I think that you can give one of them a contract like the one I just described, and then you can't have the other two guys either need to be journeymen or rookies, like on rookie deals, because you just can't dedicate a lot of money to that position group. So Swift's on the team next year. It's him and Greg Bell and Kabinda are the running back room next season. Everyone else's contract's up. So if you re-sign, let's say they re-sign Jamal Williams 4 for 25. Now you have Swift for one more year, and Williams is the back that you've committed to. I think that in the like mid to late rounds, or maybe even bringing a UDFA, maybe you keep Justin Jackson on the roster for like $1 million or something like that. But you don't spend more than that on that room. Like you have one guy that you can give second contract money to, and then everybody else needs to be some kind of bargain bin type of player. If Jeff Okudah finishes this year playing like he is, you will pick up his 5th-year option in the offseason, and then he will be on the team for 2 more years at roughly $10 million a year, and then you will have that time to determine whether or not you want to give him a second contract. And we will talk about that in his 4th year, when he's up for a contract extension. But like, you can't. I mean, Jamal Williams is playing DeAndre Swift out of a job, as far as I'm concerned.
He's been the more effective player, short down situations, and even first down situations. He just
not hurt.
Just gets more yards.
Yeah,
I mean,
the Detroit Lions, for as young as their roster is, they are not going to be able to pay everybody, and I think you're starting to see them make overtures towards understanding that. They traded TJ Hawkinson. If DeAndre Swift is going through some kind of pseudo benching by this coaching staff for whatever reasoning, that could be an homage to saying, like, we're not really committed to you as far as like giving you another contract is concerned. We feel that you're replaceable. And like, I think Funky or Crimson said in the chat that like, that was a Bob Quinn pick. That's not a Brad Holmes move. Brad Holmes brought in Jamal Williams in free agency. That's a Brad Holmes player. Swift is not. Like, that should be kept in the back of our minds. But
but at the same time, I don't think that doesn't matter for pretty much anybody except for maybe a quarterback, because they are so integral to the success of a team.
Well, it certainly matters for quarterbacks.
Right. I mean, it does only if they're questionable, right? If Brad Holmes comes into the Kansas City Chiefs right now, he's not going to be like, well, I didn't draft Patrick Mahomes, so I need to get my own. That's not a thing that happens if you got yourself an established elite quarterback. It only matters if your quarterback is on the iffy side, right? So, and I think that matters even less for all the other players. And honestly, it probably matters about the same, to be honest. Like, if Frank Ragnow wasn't a pick of Holmes, but he's not going to be like, well, he wasn't the center I drafted, so his goal isn't to replace all the previous GM's picks with his own versions of those. His goal is to make it better. So, like, when someone's like, well, Swift wasn't a Holmes pick, so he might move on from him, only if he thinks that he's not going to be the guy that helps him move forward. So
right, and that's the key determination, right?
Right, and that's based on the player's production, not who drafted them originally.
So I think it makes a difference, because if you make the determination that it's like, I think that we could probably do better with player X or whatever, and like, he was somewhat like, if you spend a resource on a player, money or a draft pick, and you bring that guy in and then they're not effective, that's on you. And like, that's a quantifiable, like, whoops a daisy. So, but however, if it's like, well, we're going to let DeAndre Swift walk because we want to re-sign Jamal Williams to a starter level contract or whatever, that can be like, you can dismiss that and say like, oh, okay, someone else made the determination to spend a resource on DeAndre Swift, and now they got 2-3 years out of DeAndre Swift, and then now you can say the other guy that I'm adding to this running back group that I've spent any kind of significant resource on, now that you're officially starting the clock on that player, and that extends my lifespan in the NFL in a GM front office role. So it's like quarterback's the one that's going to get you fired, but like you can't, you can buy some time to like get to the next like stage of your GM life cycle. If it's like, building. If I'm like, I'm now, okay, Sheila, like I'm finally bringing in the players that I want to bring in. Like we just had to go through the process to develop them, make a determination, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm just saying that there's a narrative there that they can exploit to be like, yeah, that wasn't my guy. Even if it was.
I think quality leaders, quality GMs will be able to overlook the fact that, yep, I drafted this guy, but he's not working out. And also overlook the fact that this is not my guy and he is working out. So I think the ones that use that as an excuse of like, well, he wasn't my guy, owner, the person I report to as the owner, right? Like those are the people I don't think last long anyway, where they kind of use that as an excuse. Like, hey, I'm working with what you got here and I need multiple years to retool this roster. So you pretty much have to give me a second contract so I can get my guys. Like, I don't think those guys last long. I can't imagine that's a common thing from a GM excuse perspective when it comes to team performance and trying to keep their job. I know if I was an owner or someone came to me and said, well, I'm going to give you the excuse of the team that I inherited 4 or 5 years ago at the beginning of my contract hamstrung me. And I'd be like, dude, like after 2 years, it's your team. You can only use the excuse of, but my predecessor for like 2 years and that's it. So anything after this, he's got no excuse because he could have turned over anybody he wanted. So I think that
I don't agree with that. So look at what Brad Holmes has done in 2 years, right? Like, so Brad Holmes, I would think, so he spent almost no money in free agency, right? Because he couldn't, because they didn't have it. So then the ability to him changing the roster is whether or not he re-signed somebody like Kenny Galladay, thank God, whatever. But like, also like the only ability that he's had to add impact players is through the draft. And that's not 100% in your control. And so it's like, they're stuck with Jared Goff because he has not had the opportunity to go out and get a better quarterback.
I get it, but it's only been 2 off seasons. That's what I'm saying. Like after this off season, after this third one, it's on him. Like you got your opportunities. He could have drafted Justin Fields. He had an opportunity. He chose Sewell instead.
Sure.
He could have drafted Mac Jones, but he didn't. He drafted Sewell instead.
Right.
So, like, we can't reasonably say that he never had an opportunity to even draft a quarterback that he wanted because he did. He just chose differently, which, again, I'm totally in favor of because I think Sewell's going to be, at the end of his career, a Hall of Famer. And I think you always draft the Hall of Famer, right? Regardless of what position it is. So, more or less.
I'm going to push back on what Crimson just said here. He says the only major miss so far seems to be Levi, and it's still not set in stone. I pray Pascal is healthy next season. So I don't think that Levi and Wuzurike is a miss. So any player, so like here's the timeline on what happened to Levi and Wuzurike. He was drafted, he played his rookie season, and he got hurt his second season. So by extension, is any rookie that misses a year at some point in their rookie contract a miss? We don't know what's going to happen with Levi and Wuzurike. Like that is super jumping the gun. And like I see this all the time when people want to bullshit and like badmouth Brad Holmes' drafting ability, and it's like, oh, the Lions always miss on second round picks. Okay, well, let's talk about their second round picks. Let's go GM by GM because they're not all the same general manager. So, like, the second round picks that Brad Holmes has had is Josh Paschal and Levi Onwuzurike. Are they misses? I would say no. Pascal's played well when he's played, but the idea that, like, people in the NFL don't get hurt is ridiculous. And not that Crimson's saying that, but it's
Right.
like the idea that, like, there's some negative to a player because they are hurt is not a realistic opinion to have. It's not logical in any way, shape, or form. You know, and like there are certain other YouTubers who shall remain nameless who have been pushing this narrative that, like, oh, the Detroit Lions are in love with drafting injured players. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. The reason that you draft a Levi Onwuzurike is that he had some health concerns coming out of Washington. But if he's healthy, you've taken a first-round player in the second round. And, like, when you are a rebuilding team, that is an excellent way to attempt to upgrade your draft capital and get better players on the team. Like, there's so few people in the NFL that don't get injured and miss some time, you know, but like you have to be prepared for almost everybody in the NFL to miss a year due to injury at some point in their career. Now, hopefully Onwuzurike comes back, you know, but like no one talks about Ife Melifonwu. Like that guy hardly ever plays. And they spent a third round pick on him. He's looking like a bust. But no one ever references Melifonwu when it comes to bad decisions that Brad Holmes has made. Why? Because his injury status has not been something like, well, he's going to miss the rest of the season. Yeah, but he's got hamstring problems. He hardly ever plays because his hamstrings are like rubber bands that have been pulled out to the absolute maximum. You know? But like that's a miss. But like it's also ridiculous to expect a GM to never miss. No GM in the entire NFL is 100% on any draft they ever do. So the fact that Brad Holmes has found the players in the draft that he has is excellent. And even if Levi Onwuzurike becomes like a rotation piece, then you need that guy. And I don't give a shit if you spend a second round pick on that guy. He had upside.
And he played 16 games last year. He had 35 tackles. He had a sack. He had a couple pass defenses, even at his position.
How many snaps did he play?
I'm trying to find that, and I can't find it.
It's all right. Just take your time. But like, yeah, it's like people are like, "Oh, this guy's a total bust because he got hurt." And it's like, "Oh, well, you knew he had injury problems." Okay. Well, like I made a list of all like the potential first round picks this year that have had some kind of injury problem in like the last 18 months. And like you're only able to draft like 9 fucking players in the first round if you take away all their injury status. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, like every team, almost every pick drafts somebody who has been hurt. And the expectation can't be that they're never going to be hurt. Oh, I know. You said that it's not set in stone, and I believe you, but like you're like let me just check here, 111th person that I've who has brought up this conversation, like, you know, like, oh, like Levi could very well easily be a bust. Hutchinson could be a bust. Doesn't look like it. You know, but we don't know what his second year looks like. You know, Jeff Okudah, you know, played 10 games, didn't finish out his rookie season, gets hurt in game 1 last year. Now he's playing well. Fuck, Josh Allen for the Bills, who were going to play Thursday, was a rookie and was terrible in his second year. And then it was like, oh, I'm now the best quarterback in the NFL. No one saw that coming. No one saw like a 60 PFF grade jump 30 points to a 90 PFF grade and then stay there for 2 years. You know, and he's going to get, I don't remember if he's already been extended or not, but like, I think so. But like, he's a top 2 quarterback in the NFL, you know, and he played utter trash his first 2 seasons, you know. So like, this is why like the 3-year rule is so this is so important to hold off having any opinion on a player, especially a rookie, until they're 3 years in. Because
396, by the way.
396. Okay,
396 snaps last year.
Right.
Fair number.
Yeah.
He was a rotational piece, right? He was a rookie.
Right.
He was a rotational piece. I'd say that's probably as good as we can hope for a rookie defensive lineman that he had to fight with other established veterans at that point too.
It's about 24 snaps a game if you played all 17 games. And like, to be honest, they are so beat up on the defensive line that you have guys like McNeil, Hutchinson, Pascal now that he's back. Who else plays there? Like those guys are playing almost every defensive snap. Like there's no rotation.
Yeah.
You just have to stay out there and play all of them.
Yeah.
And so like when Pascal came back, he was playing virtually every snap of the game that the defense was out there immediately. And like it would be nice if they had a defensive rotation where these guys are playing 5 to 10 snaps less a game. Now Kaminsky's back. So you don't see guys like Demetrius Taylor, Benito Jones, even Isaiah Buggs getting the same kind of snap counts that they did in weeks 5, 6, and 7 because they're getting a little bit healthier. Now they're able to like spread those snaps out a little bit, and like Romeo Okwara is practicing. Charles Harris hasn't been available, the whole time. Like we are missing a bunch of players. Like no one's saying that Charles Harris is a miss. Like they extended him coming off a 7.5 win season, a 7.5 sack season, which was by far his best ever. And he has played not well or hardly at all this season. Like no one is saying that like the contract that we gave Romeo Okwara, the contract extension, is a miss, but then he's been out for 15 months. Like it's very easy to make this like when people who say they're Lions fans come out and been like, second round picks are all busts. Levi and Wuzurike's done. Talk about Okwara.
Right,
Talk
we got
about
one more question before one more question.
Okay,
Crimson brought up a good one before we bust out of here.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I'm wondering if Williams being out there will improve Goff's deep game, or is Goff's deep game just that bad?
His deep game's just that bad. So here's my thing. 2 years ago, Matthew Stafford's the quarterback of this team. Watch how Matthew Stafford throws a football. If you want a great idea of how Matthew Stafford throws a football, go back to this. Was it this last week that he threw a touchdown to Tutu Atwell?
Oh, yeah, 62-yarder. Beautiful.
Watch that spiral on that thing. That thing, if he threw a football, it would go through the hull of a battleship. That thing cuts through air like a knife.
Yeah.
Then watch Jared Goff throw like a 15-yard pass, and it is like releasing a duck with a broken wing. It is disgusting to watch. And the thing about it is, like, if Jared Goff cannot stay in the pocket and step into a throw, Jameson Williams is going to outrun that football. And he's going to have to stop and wait for it. Right, exactly. And so to me, going into the draft, like everyone's like, Detroit needs a quarterback, whatever. Okay, that's probable. But like, if you don't draft a quarterback that's capable of, like, you absolutely have to have a quarterback who has an arm that can be like wrist flick 60 yards. Otherwise, Jameson Williams cannot be as effective.
Yeah.
You have to have a quarterback with an excellent arm, and Jared Goff is not that player.
Yeah, to me, when I look at the difference between, I'm a Stafford fan, as everybody that's ever seen the show knows.
What? Yeah,
I know, crazy. Isn't that right, Matt? I'm just kidding. Our gnome is not called Matt.
Okay.
We need a name for the gnome, by the way. So if anybody has an idea for our little Lions fan gnome here, throw it into chat and we'll come up with a name. But to me, the big difference between Stafford and Goff, there's a couple of them. Number one is arm strength. Stafford can, like you said, flick it 60 yards. crossed his body off his back heel, 62 yards in the air. So that's a big piece. Number two, he can do it with touch as well. Early in his career, he struggled with touch, but as he moved along, I think throwing those big fades to Calvin really helped him with his touch, because that's what you have to do for those little end zone.
Calvin helps with just about anything you want to throw. I mean, the guy's amazing.
So deep ball accuracy, Stafford I think is really, really accurate there. He's got the long arm. He can throw a nice tight spiral, like you mentioned. And
It's
the other
amazing.
thing I think it's like magic through the air. It's like, is it even spiraling, or is it just shooting like a missile? But the other thing to me is on those short routes where you just need to get the ball in tight and you need to get the ball there quickly, he can gun it in there, but still make it where the guy can catch it. Right. Whereas Goff, like if you need to get that ball there, it's intercepted. He doesn't have the strength to get the ball there quick. And that's, I mean, even decision-making, I know Stafford, sometimes he can be a little roller coastery, right, on decision-making, but like, I think most of his decision-making roller coaster stuff, Brad knows.
That's it. That's it. That's got to be it. First try.
Brad Gnomes. I like it.
Oh God.
I love it, Crimson. We now have our gnome.
A+, dude. A+. Nice. Nicely done.
Stafford has some sometimes up and down decision making, but not usually anything other than, I think I can do this thing that I probably shouldn't, but I'm pretty sure I can. Whereas I think Goff's decision making is, I'm just going to YOLO it, is what it seems to me, right? So I think Stafford sees those like, all right, this is where the defender is, this is where the receiver is, this needs to be a back shoulder throw, and he knows when to do those kinds of things. So those are the big differences, I think, between Stafford and Goff. And those are all the key things of being an elite quarterback versus being Jared Goff. So
yeah, I mean, I agree that the Lions are probably in a better position as a football team if they move on for Jared Goff in some way, shape, or form. But if the guy that you're bringing in can't get the ball to Jameson Williams when he's, I mean, like, I'm not just saying that Jameson Williams is only good at running 9 routes, but like there are certainly, like, he has elite speed at every level of the field, and like some of those levels of the field, Jared Goff can get him the ball. But if we're gonna use this guy for like the next 5 years, then like I think you need a quarterback that can utilize him at all 3 levels, and I just don't think Jared Goff is that quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. All right. I know we kind of went a little bit long, but that's all right. It was a good conversation. We now have a name for our gnome. We got Brad Gnomes here. So I'm going to laugh every time I say that. I'm going to create a little name card or something just to put in front of him. So
from all of us here at Casual GM Podcast and Brad Gnomes, if you have questions, please email us at casualgmpodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you guys next week. We'll do a mock draft next week.
I like it. All right, everybody, keep it casual.
Thank you.
See you guys.